What's up, Colts fans? Welcome to today's episode of Colts Latest. As always, I am your host, Scott Reiman, coming to you from San Rafael, California, in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, home of this year's Super Bowl 60, which is finally behind us. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. I think I can speak for almost every Colts fan when I say we're perfectly happy never seeing the New England Patriots win another Super Bowl. Brady or no Brady, Belichick or no Belichick, it doesn't matter to me. They're still the Patriots, and I never want to see them win another Super Bowl. Can you believe that Phillip Rivers almost beat this Super Bowl champion at their place not too long ago, were it not for a last second field goal? To me, that just shows how close this team actually is. I mean, look, if Sam Darnold can win a Super Bowl, Daniel Jones can win a Super Bowl. Sam Darnold is no more talented of a quarterback than Daniel Jones. Now, he has a little bit of a better defense behind him, and they had his back during the Super Bowl, but the Colts are not that far away from putting the kind of team that Seattle has out there on the field. If they can shore up that front seven, I think they have more offensive weapons than Seattle does, and I don't see any reason why, when healthy, this team can't do what Seattle did. I stand by that. So today we're going to go over the off-season calendar and kind of talk about where the Colts fit into all the different moving parts in the off-season. But before we do that, as always, I have to give a big thanks to FanArch. Couldn't do this without them. I love talking Colts with everyone, so if you like what you see, please like this video and subscribe to this channel so that FanArch can keep putting me out there talking Colts, and it's a win-win-win. So first order of business in the offseason is we are going to talk about the franchise tag. Now, the franchise tag window opens on February 17th and runs through March 3rd. We're already starting to hear from sources that, like I predicted last week, Dallas is going to use the franchise tag on wide receiver George Pickens. So news is going to start to leak out before that window opens on February 17th on who some of these teams are considering using their franchise tag on. The Colts may already know, they may not already know. I don't think there are that many options for them to use the tag on. But first, we're going to go over a little refresher on how the franchise tag actually works. It is a 1-year guaranteed contract that pays the player the average of the top 5 salaries from that position from the previous year, or 120% of their previous salary, whichever is higher. It's usually going to be that average of the top 5. The most common franchise tag is the non-exclusive tag, where players can still negotiate with other teams after they're tagged. Now, the tagging team has the right to match any offer, and should they decline, they get 2 first-round draft picks as compensation. Players can be tagged up to 3 times, and each subsequent tag adds 100 or makes their salary go up 120% from the previous year. So, who are the candidates for the Colts franchise tag? Well, the first 2 are pretty obvious. First, you have Daniel Jones. Now, the Colts have made all indications clear that they expect Daniel Jones to be their long-term quarterback. But are they going to start with the franchise tag, or are they going to sign him to a long-term deal? The franchise tag for quarterbacks is expected to be between $46 and $47 million this season, and a long-term deal for Daniel Jones is projected to be about 4 years, $180 million, or $45 million per year. So the money is going to be pretty close. I think it's just a matter of where Daniel Jones is at in his rehab. If they think he looks like he's ready for week 1 or will be ready really early in the season, I think they're more likely to sign him to that long-term deal. I think if they're unsure, or maybe he has a setback, but they still want him to be the quarterback of the future, then maybe the franchise tag comes into play and they can reassess after this season and see how he's come along from that injury. But my projection is the Colts will find a way to sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal so that they can save that franchise tag for another player. And who might that player be? I expect it to be Alec Pierce. Now, the franchise tag for the wide receiver is expected to be pretty pricey at $28 million. A long-term deal for Alec Pierce right now is projected to be 3 or 4 years at around $21 to $23 million per year, so not quite up to that franchise tag level. But from what I'm hearing, there could be a bidding war for Alec Pierce, and it could get a lot higher than that. And I really think the Colts just want to safeguard themselves against losing Alec Pierce and not getting anything in return. They don't want to get into a bidding war where the price just gets too high and then they haven't tagged him. They're not going to get draft picks back as compensation, and they just lose Alec Pierce for nothing. So I personally expect him to be tagged. That would make Pierce, Pittman, Downs, and Doolin all free agents at the end of next season, barring somebody getting released or signing an extension this season. And that would make this season an audition for who's the wide receiver one moving forward. I mean, Tyler Warren's sophomore season is also going to be a factor. If he shows that he can be that number one go-to receiver next season and moving forward, then the Colts will be more likely to let one of those receivers go. If Tyler Warren maybe takes a step back, which I'm not expecting, but if he doesn't look like he is the alpha number one option, then they're going to decide this season who looks best, probably between Pittman and Pierce. And I'm kind of expecting Pierce to pass Pittman this year, especially because he's probably not going to command as much money on the free agent market after next season. But my guess is Alec Pierce is going to get the franchise tag. Now, who's the last option that the Colts could really use the franchise tag on? The only other candidate that I see on the roster right now is Nick Cross. Nick Cross had a breakout 2025 season. He does all the kinds of things that we saw the secondary for Seattle do. He gets after the QB. He had 3 sacks last year. He stops the run. He's not the best cover guy, but with the lockdown cover corners that the Colts have, he can really afford to be more aggressive, especially where that front seven and the linebacking core is lacking. He can kind of step up and be more of that run-stopping, get after the quarterback kind of safety. A little bit like Bob Sanders. Not quite what we saw with Bob Sanders, but doing the same kind of things that Bob Sanders did, right? Now, the tag might be too rich to give to Nick Cross. It's projected at $21 million. Now, right now, his long-term projections for a deal are wide. The range is just wide. I'm seeing everywhere from like 4 years, $24 million to 3 years, $39 million. But even at that high end, $21 million is just a lot more than he's going to be getting per year in a long-term deal. I really expect the Colts to try to sign him to a deal. They need to bring him back. Hopefully there isn't too much competition for him out there and they can keep it at a price that's affordable. I think if it's in that 4-year, $24 million range, that is certainly an amount that the Colts would be willing to pay to keep Nick Cross around. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better as the time goes by. The next thing up in the schedule is the draft combine. Draft Combine starts February 23rd and runs through March 2nd in Indianapolis. We're going to get more into the draft later this week and talk about Colts players that the Colts might target, positions the Colts might target. So stay tuned. We will definitely get to that. But now we are going to get into free agency. The free agency period. Well, the early negotiating period is March 9th through March 11th. That's also what's known as the legal tampering period. This is where unrestricted free agents can start negotiating with teams. Contracts can't be signed yet, but they can be agreed to in principle. We hear that a lot. This player's agreed to a contract in principle with this team, but nothing's finalized. But this is where you start to hear those deals getting leaked. Now, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern, that is when the 2026 NFL year officially begins. That's when undrafted free agents can officially sign contracts. All teams must be compliant with the salary cap at that point, so we may see the Colts release a player or two before then in order to get compliant with the salary cap and make sure that there's room to sign these guys who they want to stick around. That's the deadline to tender offers to restricted free agents. Colts don't really have any restricted free agents that I think are going to be worth tendering, so I don't see them doing that. And that is also when previously agreed upon trades can finally execute. So the Colts have a decent amount of free agents this year. Some are obviously coming back. Some aren't going to come back. We already talked about Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and Nick Cross, but who are some of the other free agents that are on the radar here? We're going to start with Braden Smith on the offensive line. Look, he had a down year by his standards. He was injured to end the season. His deal is projected at 3 years, $40 million still, and with the Colts needing to re-sign Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and Nick Cross, among others, I'm just not sure that they're going to have the money to afford to sign Braden Smith again. They also really liked what they saw from youngster Jalen Travis, who, as you know, is a beast at 6'8", 340 pounds. Still a little raw, but he filled in admirably for Braden Smith down the stretch. And I think if he takes another step, he can be the anchor on the right side and take over for Braden. The team could also use a late pick on an offensive tackle for depth. That's usually a good spot for value at the offensive line late in the draft. Or they could sign a cheaper free agent for that depth. But I expect the Colts, unfortunately, to move on from Braden Smith this offseason. That brings us to Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye is another guy who the Colts might just get priced out of. I'm sure they'd love to bring him back on a short, small, kind of prove-it deal, but his projected offer this year is looking at 3 years, $53 million, which kind of shocked me. I'm not sure he's going to get that much, but even anything approaching that, I'm just not sure the Colts can afford. They also want to see more out of JT Tuimoloau. I mean, this guy was a second-round pick last year, and they really want to see what they've got from him. I want to see what they've got from him. I think he's going to get a lot more snaps this year, especially if Kwity Paye does not come back. The guy was a second-round pick for a reason. So they're also going to almost definitely use at least one draft pick on an edge rusher. And the emergence of Laiatu Latu last year and hopefully his continued ascension is only going to make Kwity Paye more expendable. Look, I know the front seven is tough right now. I mean, that's probably the weakest point of this team, but I just don't know that they're going to be able to afford to keep Kwity Paye around at a 3-year, $53 million value. I expect Kwity Paye to sign elsewhere at that price, and he may be successful elsewhere. He may. He's shown flashes with the Colts. Last year was just a down year, and I think he's going to get paid more off what he did in 2023 and 2024 than what he did in 2025, and that just prices him out for the Colts. Next up, we have Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt played pretty well after coming over from Cincinnati. He's got really good familiarity with Lou Anarumo in the system, and that goes a long way. And he's also not expected to be too pricey. He's projected to get a 1 to 2 year deal at around $3 million per year. And I think at that price, and with how shallow the Colts are at linebacker, I expect them to bring him back at a deal like that. They're also definitely going to draft a linebacker, maybe multiple linebackers, and possibly with their first pick in round 2, that could be a linebacker to help out Jermaine Pratt and Zaire Franklin, who we all know did not have the best of years last year. But with just, like I said, with the state of the Colts linebacking room right now, I don't see how they can't bring Jermaine Pratt back. A couple of more edge rushers who we have as free agents, Samson Ebukam and Tyquan Lewis. They're not going to command nearly the price, obviously, that Kwity Paye is going to command. I think each one of them is looking at a 1 to 2 year deal, also at about $2 to $3 million per year. I would expect them to keep at least one of those guys for depth, if not both. This defensive line really needs some depth. If it's just one of them, I kind of think it's going to be Tyquan Lewis. He's been with the team longer. He has more familiarity with the team. And Samson Ebukam's been beat up the last couple of years. I don't see them re-signing him. So I think Tyquan Lewis could be a depth piece for this defensive line next season. At tight end, we're looking at Mo Alley Cox and Andrew Ogletree, both free agents. With Tyler Warren emerging, I don't think they need both of them. Will Mallory is under contract for 1 more year. I think if they bring one of these guys back, that's going to be sufficient for the tight end room. Mo is a seasoned vet. He's athletic. He can still make plays. He's a fan favorite. He's been with this team a long time. I expect them to bring him back at a similar deal he was on last year, 1 year for around $2 million. I personally think he can do a few more deals like that, 1 year, $2 million, just to be a seasoned veteran backup for now. And so I don't see him really going anywhere. That probably is going to leave Andrew Ogletree on the outside looking in. Other depth guys who are free agents who the Colts may bring back on cheap deals. Danny Pinter could be back to back up Tanner Bordolini at center. Amir Abdullah could get another 1 year, $2 million deal to back up Jonathan Taylor and be a special teams guy again. Depending on the status with Nick Cross, Rodney Thomas might be an important depth piece at safety if they can't bring Cross back. So he's a guy who I could definitely see the Colts looking to sign to a 2-year, $5 million deal, something like that. But we will just have to see once free agency opens up on March 11th. And that is going to bring us to the NFL draft. The NFL draft is from April 23rd to April 25th. But of course, as you all know, the Colts won't be picking until April 24th as they have no first round pick. They gave up their first round pick this year and next year to the New York Jets for all-pro cornerback Sauce Gardner. They also don't have a 6th round pick as that was traded during the offseason last year to the Vikings for cornerback Mekhi Blackman. The good news is the Colts are projected to get 2 compensatory picks. Believe it or not, losing Joe Flacco and EJ Speed in the offseason is expected to gain them a 6th rounder and a 7th rounder in the 2026 draft. And we all know players of value have been drafted in the 6th and 7th rounds, Tom Brady, Brock Purdy, among others. So who knows what the Colts could pick up with those picks. It's better than nothing. It doesn't replace a first round pick, obviously, but there could be some value there, especially with the positions that the Colts are looking to draft. Colts are going to be looking to draft offensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, linebackers. These are the kind of positions that you can find value in late rounds of the draft. At worst, the Colts can use those picks to shore up the offensive line and the front 7 depth after potentially losing guys from those units to free agency. So including the compensatory picks, the Colts are looking at picks number 47, 78, 113, 154, 216, which is a compensatory pick in the 6th round, 230, and 253, which is a compensatory pick in the 7th round. Over the next several shows, I'm going to go into an early look kind of at who the Colts might target in these rounds, what positions, as well as what big names have been drafted right around those slots. Let's dream big. Let's look at our 6th rounder and think Puka Nacua value. Let's look at our 7th rounder and think Brock Purdy value. You know, who knows who you could pick up with those picks. So anything to give us a little hope without that first rounder, right? All right, well, that is all I've got for you today. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Colts Latest page. I appreciate it. I love you all, and let's go Colts.